Howdy guys, Jimmy Song here. This is a series of videos about Bitcoin and vices. And in this video, we're going to talk about gluttony. Now, gluttony traditionally is defined as a sort of obsession with food or thinking about food way too much. And food is certainly a large part of it, but it's bigger than that, right? Like there's a whole subculture of consumerism that's in society today, especially in Western countries and so on, that's a dominant part of our psyche. That's a dominant part of our attention. And this is something that is really brought on by fiat money. The obsession with material goods and consuming is really brought on by Keynesian economic policies. So in a very real way, what Bitcoin does is it brings us back to a sound money footing. And that means that instead of consuming things now, which is what fiat money implicitly encourages and oftentimes explicitly encourages, you store value, right? Like you save it for later and, exhibit low time preference behavior instead of high time preference behavior, wanting things right now and so on. And this is at the heart of what gluttony is, right? Like it's this inhibition being completely released so that you just consume right now instead of sort of a higher purpose and not sort of ruining yourself right now because you want to experience pleasure for now. And this is I think related to lust as well. It's short time preference behavior, right? Like it's high time preference behavior or short time orientation behavior. It's wanting things right now and not saving for later. The thing about saving for later is that there really hasn't been a good way to save money for later. You usually need to hire some sort of an investment professional in order to store value even decently, that is keeping up with the monetary expansion of the US dollar, for example. But what Bitcoin allows you to do is it makes virtue a lot easier. It makes gluttony a lot harder, right? That's another way to think about it. Because you have a very low time preference, you're not going to want to consume right now. You're not going to want to do that. And this is borne out in the behavior of a lot of people that get into Bitcoin instead of constantly consuming, right? Whether it's like movies or drugs or whatever, oftentimes people are a lot more judicious, right? Like they're not going to like spend money on everything. They're not as into the consumerist culture. And instead they save for later or think about businesses that can make more money now so they can enjoy things more later or provide goods and services for others and acquire wealth and accumulate capital and start even bigger businesses and so on. That's what capitalism actually is. It's often conflated with consumerism, but in many ways it's the exact opposite. It's low time preference behavior in order to accumulate capital so you could provide even better goods and services so you can gain even more capital, right? Like that's sort of like the good kind of greed. The word greed has sort of been misnamed. That's just being a good steward of your money, right? But unfortunately, what we have is the opposite, which is consuming right now and doing it for your own pleasure. And thankfully, Bitcoin is starting to change that, and that's the behavior that we can expect from people that get into Bitcoin is they're not going to be YOLOing and FOMOing. They're not going to be consuming everything that they can immediately. Instead, save for the future, create goods and services, accumulate capital, and do things for the future with a long-term purpose. And that's I think that will be really fantastic for civilization. I really do. I think that will cause new goods and services to come into being that are better than the ones that we have now. It will add to civilization. It will add to everybody's life because you'll have a lot more entrepreneurs doing stuff like that. Anyway, that's my thought on Bitcoin and gluttony. Hope that helps you. This song is that.